Today's video is at the intersection of two trends. The first one is women going on hikes and being abandoned by their partners. Great. The second one is the men au pair discourse. And the topic of today's video at the intersection of the two is the female solo travel epidemic. I call it epidemic because female solo travel is all over my feed right now. It's unhealthy, but gosh, the algo knows me well. I used to be one of them. When I was 20-ish, I used the money I earned working alongside my studies to travel by myself to neighboring countries. At that time, so we're talking 6 to 8 years ago, the female solo travel trend was only emerging. The stigma around traveling solo, especially as a woman, was not an obstacle anymore. Influencers made it look cool and fun and introspective. Basically, you could be a cool girl and a solo female traveler. The latter could even make you more of the former. But as years went by, the language around the female solo traveler trend changed quite drastically. It became something kinda political. The female solo traveler somehow entered cultural wars.
Women choose the bear. I choose the bear. Any day.
How? Who does it speak to? And most importantly, what purpose does it actually serve? My name is Alice. Welcome back to my channel. I don't want to argue against female solo travel. I want to ask what kind of freedom it offers. And to do so, we need to start by looking at what it challenges. So there aren't many stories about famous female travelers throughout history, and it kind of makes sense because they were forbidden from traveling in the first place. Come on ladies, the outdoors is no place for vulnerable people. Women are conditioned from a young age to fear the outside world. I mean, it's no surprise that one of the most popular children's stories is The Little Red Riding Hood. At its core, it's a cautionary tale warning girls and young women about the dangers of the unknown and the threat of predators. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but there are actually two versions of that story. The ending was changed more than a century after its original publication. And yes, I know, we've been victim-blaming women for centuries now. The first version, written by Charles Perrault in 1697, was absolutely brutal. Little Red Riding Hood is tricked by the wolf, who eats both her and her grandmother, and no one comes to save them. Sorry girls, you should have known better. The second version, written by the brothers Grimm in 1812, completely changes the ending. Inspired by the German folk tales they collected during the Romantic era, their version introduces a brave huntsman who arrives just in time to rescue Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother from the wolf. The happy ending certainly made the story more suitable for children, but I can't help but think that there is some hidden meaning behind that. There's something more going on. A brave hunter saving women from a predator. In the Grimm version of the story, Little Red Riding Hood becomes a damsel in distress. The story ends by celebrating the heroic man who rescues the vulnerable woman, a trope we are all very familiar with by now. But it also carries a new message. If women are going to venture outside, they better do so with a man, with a protector. That idea has had a remarkably long afterlife. Even today, one of the manosphere's favorite talking points is that a man's role is to protect women from predators, or from men's attention more generally.
I feel indebted and have a duty to myself and my honor, meaning that if I'm walking down the street with a beautiful woman and 3 men want to attack her, I have to risk my life now.
In exchange, he gets to monitor where she goes, who she sees, and what she does. The woman becomes his responsibility, his possession, all framed as the reasonable price of keeping her safe. This seems like a good moment to remind ourselves that 90% of essays are committed by someone the victim knows, often a current or former partner. That means that the hunter is not necessarily safer than the wolf. The woman who died on a hike was abandoned by her partner. It's striking to me that this story went so viral. It says a lot about how relatable it is. But yeah, this is how you make women internalize that going in the forest, staying out too late, having too many drinks is not responsible, and if something happens to them, they can only blame themselves. With all of that in mind, it becomes easier to understand why the female solo travel trend feels so empowering. It goes against many of the things girls and women are told from an early age. Online female lifestyle influencers like Eva Zubek, who has also worked for National Geographic, have pushed that sense of empowerment even further by deconstructing a whole range of stereotypes attached to womanhood. In her content, she challenges expectations around femininity, shaving, always smelling fresh, wearing makeup, using Botox, as well as the expectation that women should settle down, get married, and have children. Eva advocates for the exact opposite, or at least for removing the stigma around women who choose a different path. And this is where female solo travel content enters what some call the cultural wars. Cultural wars are political conflicts over cultural values and identity that prioritize symbolic controversies over structural issues like inequality or institutional power. That is not to say that debates around shaving armpits or wearing makeup don't matter, but if we treat them as the end-all be-all of politics, then we're missing something. Maybe you've noticed that a lot of my videos borrow that cultural war aesthetic. You see it in the thumbnail titles and even the examples that I use. But if you know me and my content, you know that I always try to push those conversations beyond cultural wars, to point a finger at the people, places, or structures that create those inequalities in the first place. That's exactly what we're going to do in this video, and to do so, we need to first go back to Eva's content. As an educated woman who followed the rat race in London before walking away from it,
I moved there with a fancy college degree, lured in by the job ads and the career promises.
Eva has become someone many young women can relate to.
I had a great job, a lovely relationship, everything was going well, living in London, climbing the corporate ladder. Is this actually making me happy? And once I started reevaluating my life choices, like, oh, actually, I'd rather be doing something else with my life, building my own dream as opposed to someone else's. That's when I knew that I had to do something very, very different, very radical, and change my life.
In fact, the female solo traveler is often imagined as a young white woman from the global north. I wanted to add middle class or wealthy, but I don't know, in my experience, most of the women, the female solo travelers I met on my little travels were not wealthy, they were not middle class. We were staying in hostels and campsites because that's all we could afford. So I want to put a little bit of nuance. Some of you will say that I'm trying to find excuses for myself, and maybe that's the case. What's clear though is that the female solo traveler often views travel as both a material experience, so you travel, you take pictures, etc., and an abstract experience, a chance to reconnect with themselves and clear their mind. Traveling can be a response to a personal crisis, a breakup, or simply not having anyone to travel with. In the mega bestseller and its film adaptation, Eat, Pray, Love, which to me kinda kickstarted the whole trend, the protagonist embarks on a year-long solo journey following a painful divorce and a period of personal dissatisfaction. Her travels through Italy, India, and Indonesia are framed not simply as tourism, but as a transformative process of healing and self-discovery. The story helped popularize the idea of solo travel as the path to personal renewal. Now, Eva's content speaks to many of those same frustrations. It offers a concrete response to the pressures many young women face while trying to balance careers with patriarchal expectations around femininity and domestic work. Eva's solution to this was to buy a piece of land in rural Poland in search of a different kind of happiness, one rooted in nature.
I bought land. A lot of it. And I'm sitting on it right now. And over there, that's my view.
While encouraging other women to imagine doing the same. She also points out that women own very little land globally, only around 50%, therefore framing her decision as a feminist one. And she's right that in a capitalist economy, owning land gives you a new set of rights that you can use to protect yourself. Owning land gives you legal rights against people who want to evict you or take your property. We actually talked about that in a recent video I made on the Flamingo Revolution in Albania. You remember the Trump Kushner Island projects as an island? Well, activists and lawyers are using unresolved ownership claims over the island to slow down the project and preserve biodiversity. Yet, those legal protections remain very limited. Eva herself has spoken about dealing with a stalker who somehow managed to find her plot of land and showed up.
It's a really terrifying experience when men that you don't know seek you out and you don't know what their intentions are. Women choose the bear. I choose the bear. Any day.
Around the world and across time, minorities who sought protection through land ownership have faced a new series of obstacles. One famous example is the United States in the 1960s, where many black middle-class families who moved into predominantly white suburbs saw their homes attacked until they eventually moved away. And still, in many parts of the world today, vulnerable communities are being expropriated through dubious legislation that strips them of their property rights. And I don't know, in a Western context, framing land ownership as empowerment feels a bit risky to me. You know, there's a long history of seeing the world as our playground, and I don't think the female solo travel trend is really challenging that. You see the idea of the traveler as a self-reliant individual who leaves home to reinvent themselves in nature has long occupied a central place in Western culture. One of its earliest and most influential expressions is Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, published in 1719. It follows a shipwrecked Englishman who survives for nearly 3 decades on a deserted island through his own labor and perseverance. Yet, as Edward Said argues in Culture and Imperialism, the novel is about much more than survival. Crusoe doesn't simply adapt to the island, he claims it and reshapes it according to European norms, turning it into a space of possession and control. This is precisely what led Irish writer James Joyce to describe Crusoe as, quote, the true prototype of the British colonist. His celebrated independence is inseparable from an unquestioned sense of authority over both land and people. I mean, the assumption that you can just arrive somewhere, understand the land, tame it as you wish, with no prior knowledge is revealing of an unchecked superiority complex. Yet that's still the mindset behind a lot of travel content today. The story is very consistent. The creator feels stuck in a routine, modern life feels alienating, and they decide to make a drastic change, to put themselves in an uncomfortable situation and prove themselves that they can master anything, that they are built for greatness. The problem is that those big famous creators arrive with barely any idea of what they're getting themselves into. They wouldn't last a day without the help of locals who have spent generations accumulating the knowledge needed to survive and thrive there. For most of history, that adventurous traveler was a white man. But more recently, Western minorities have also been invited into that role. Let's go back to Eva's earlier post where she talked about buying land. She also revealed on that post that she had no previous experience managing it. Some people will read this with admiration. Personally, I can't help but roll my eyes because, to me, this is just exactly the same story we've just talked about. It's Robinson Crusoe, girl-bossified. Now, the point isn't to say that Eva is a colonizer, absolutely not. But the fantasy remains the same. Freedom is imagined as something the individual achieves by leaving society behind, by buying land and figure things out on their own. More recently, I stumbled upon a reaction by Joris Lechan to a creator promoting a community that helps queer people meet, travel, and buy property together. So something kind of similar. I mean, listen to what this guy has to say.
I'm living in Bali with 12 queer people for the next couple of months. People are hanging out in the pool. For a lot of our lives as queer people, we put on so many masks. We're repressing who we are. Like, don't be too effeminate, don't be too loud, don't be too artistic and fabulous. I don't want to wear those masks anymore.
The relief he describes is totally understandable, but as you can see, that sense of relief comes at the cost of complete indifference to what happens behind those walls. Look at those walls, they're so tall. Whether those walls exist in our minds or are built out of concrete, the problem is the same. We stop really seeing people on the other side, or we treat them as just part of our journey of self-discovery. At worst, they become an opportunity for exploitation. Here I am, switching to Twitch React mode, kind of. Let's watch this video. This is another video from Eva. And yeah, I wanted to show you this video because to me, this is such a perfect example of how the tourism industry can feel very neo-colonial at times. If you think I'm exaggerating, you'll see what I mean in a second. Okay, let's play the video.
Over the last year, I traveled Pakistan far and wide, north to south and east to west. My videos and content about the country have garnered millions of views, but
1.5
I'm not
million
here
on
to
this
talk
one.
about myself today. Today, I'm here to talk about what I've seen of Pakistan and what I believe the future of Pakistan's tourism can be.
Now, this sounds pretty innocent so far, but there are already some elements here and there. Just for your information, this video is inspired by a talk she gave to the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So this video can already be read like this. She's a Western woman telling the Prime Minister of Pakistan why she thinks it can be a great destination for tourism. But we'll see that this video is not just directed at him. There are a lot of references made for a Western audience. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's watch this video.
Starting with the mountains of Pakistan, one of the greatest assets that nature has bestowed on this country. Why can't ski resorts dot the peaks of these mountains?
Okay, so here we're starting to see the neo-colonial aesthetic, let's say. It's very soft so far, but you see we're talking about assets that nature has given to this country and how to turn them into economic assets. So how to turn those mountains into ski resorts. We have another example in a second.
Why can't Pakistan become the next Bhutan or Nepal, with mountaineering and mountain trekking infrastructures that rival those of its neighboring countries?
We're introducing the language of competition, competing with neighboring countries. And the big question for me throughout this video is, why does it have to? Why does it have to be the #1 travel destination? Why does it have to rival its neighboring countries? You see what I mean?
This is Hingol National Park in Balochistan. Now, why can't this become the next Grand Canyon?
Okay, another reference for a Western audience. To be fair, it is quite similar to Grand Canyon, but I just want to show you a quick picture of Grand Canyon, actually, during the busy tourism months. Look at this. This is what we call over-tourism. It doesn't make anyone happy. Nature is not happy, locals are not happy, and this is no exception. So if you really love nature, as Eva does, I'm sure, you wouldn't be promoting this, like...
The entire coast of the Arabian Sea, with the right attitude and vision, could become one of the world's prime beach destinations for all seasons. Imagine 5-star resorts, private islands, and beach shacks.
So far I've said that this is for a Western audience, but here we're getting a bit more specific, because when you talk about 5-star hotels, when you talk about private beaches and stuff like that, you're not talking to the general Western audience. You're talking to wealthy tourists. You're talking to the millionaires, the billionaires who can afford private islands. This is not Eva. This is not even Eva's audience. And to me, this is why this video starts to feel like an ad for foreign investment.
Because, after all, isn't it beautiful? And isn't it possible?
It is possible, but again, it's not because there's an opportunity that you have to do it. This is such a capitalist mindset. You have to make profit. You have to make something out of everything. You can't just live things as they are. Okay, culture and the arts. We're gonna skip this. We have religious tourism as well, and then we have food tourism. Okay, reaching the conclusion now.
Is my Pakistan.
This is my Pakistan.
It's going to take so much time, effort, dedication, and investment to bring this vision into reality. But I know that the gifts that Pakistan has been blessed with are endless.
Okay, let's pause on this. Let's just look at this sentence. This line, I could have found this in Christopher Columbus' notes. We're talking about gifts, we're talking about assets. This is exactly what Western colonizers who arrive in those quote-unquote exotic places said in their travel journals. And again, I'm not saying Eva is like a colonizer, but just the language, the aesthetic, the fact that, as you can see on this picture, it's mostly her with nothing behind her. We barely see Pakistanis throughout this video. We just see land. We see real estate opportunities. We knew from the start that this video was not for the people of Pakistan, but as we reach the end of it just feels really disappointing. Now, funnily enough, this video is 7-year-old, and Eva has recently posted this. You can see it on screen, where she talks about over-tourism and the myth around the tourism industry, how damaging it can be. And I know a lot of you will look at this after watching the video we've just watched thinking, what a hypocrite. And I know it's tempting, but I want to see someone who's grown. She mentions on the post that, 7 years ago, she wasn't really aware of all those things, and now she is. This is obviously an ad for foreign investment. This has nothing to do on a channel like this. Personally, I think that people can learn from their mistakes, people can change. But I'm not gonna lie, looking back at the female solo travel content through that lens makes me wonder whether the empowerment narrative was also just marketing. What if the cultural angle wasn't just ideological? What if it was simply a way of meeting the tourism market where it currently is? In fact, a recent National Geographic article, Eva actually worked with National Geographic, and well, this article explains that as women's participation in travel has grown, the tourism industry has increasingly recognized them as one of its most valuable consumer groups. According to Skift research, the Women Travel Report, published in 2024, women make 82% of travel decisions and account for 64% of travelers worldwide. In response, tourism companies have rapidly expanded products directed specifically to that market, the female market. The Adventure Travel Trade Association reports a 230% increase in companies catering exclusively to female travelers, while Intrepid Travel records a 59% increase in bookings for its women expeditions in 2024 compared with the previous year. This is huge. This is insane. The article argues that the appeal of these trips isn't just safety, but also a desire to look for connection, for personal growth and community. So rather than simply selling holidays, the tourism industry is selling something more. It's selling empowerment and sorority. Just look at Intrepid's own description. The world needs more women at the forefront. That's why we created our women's expeditions. These trips are all about shattering the barriers of traditional tourism and amplifying the voices pushing for gender equality. It's adventure travel and female empowerment roll into one, and sharing it all with a small bunch of like-minded women, that's pretty special too. To me, this looks an awful lot like corporations trying to make money out of women's empowerment, out of social justice. Now, I don't want to come across as overly cynical. I'm sure these trips are very ethical, but I just want you to recognize the marketing strategy. The language of empowerment and safety becomes another way of selling a product, an often expensive one. The unique selling point is that these trips are for women, which conveniently justifies charging more. So once again, women end up paying a premium just for wanting to be safe. And honestly, I'm just just so tired of that. That's why I made a mini-series called Ladylike or Nebula. It's a bunch of portraits of women who refuse to have their lives defined by fear, but who also fought back against the systems that benefited from keeping them afraid in the first place. To me, these women and their stories are much more empowering than the female solo travel trend. Not because it's about individual transformation, but because it's about women organizing collectively to change the conditions they live under. So that's it, that's the end of my rambling. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, to subscribe if it's not already done. You can also support the channel on Patreon. We have exclusive content over there, Discord chat, early access, ad-free content. I put the link in the description. And a big thank you to my Patreons, with a special thank to top tier Patreons. Rasul, Malte, I'm literally a fork. Hamed, Sibev, Jose, Nofal Shamari, Fred, Hongchi Won, Paul Louis Agenot, Patrick Button, Jeff Lee, Tyab Matin, Nick, Brandon, Jem Siddle, Ojwal, Patrick, Boris, Ria, Corrigi, Tristan, Christopher, Jan, Donage, Alex, Manuel, Christopher France, and Perry. And thank you to the other ones who prefer to stay anonymous. That's it, that's all I had to say today. Thank you again so much for watching, and I'll see you very soon. Salut! Who followed the rat way. Ah, c'est dur à dire ça.